Almost famous? I already passed that point. I'm past almost famous. I'm legendary. And that's why.
We'll grab his information and see what we can do, but there's, like I said, there's...
Can you please collect the information? He said that he's already illegal. He already said that he went to...
Okay, hold on. Let's back up a little bit. First off, we're a sanctuary city. Even if he is legal here, we cannot call ICE.
Okay, but you still have to report that, right?
No, we don't. Because it's a sanctuary city. We do not report illegal, undocumented.
So you're gonna let a person who went to prison, he committed a crime in America, who's illegal right now, you're gonna let him go free right now to this elevator?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Because we're a sanctuary city. I've arrested a double homicide suspect in this city before and let him walk out the door because we're a sanctuary city. We're not gonna call ICE to come pick him up and deport him.
He came to pick up $320,000 from your, him, or mine, grandmother and grandfather, and he's walking away freely right now, right?
Everyone was a slave. Everyone.
Well, not everyone was a slave.
No,
but
everyone was a slave.
Okay.
We are all descended from slaves.
Yeah.
Well, all of us.
Yeah.
It's just a question of when. Was it more recent or less recent? That's it.
Right.
What future do we want? Is this something we want to make part of our constant dialogue forever, or do we want to say, like, let's just move on and treat everyone according to just who they are as an individual?
Her price gouging or price control regime, however you want to phrase it, is only going to lead to scarcity amongst food products and potentially higher prices as well.
8 out of the 9 press releases published by the House Republican Conference since President Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race are regarding the economy and the border crisis.
I think we need to stay focused on the issues American people care about, which is the cost of things, inflation, crime, open border. But I remain very optimistic that we're not just going to hold the House majority. We'll increase our majority.
On the other hand, House Democratic Conference has only published 2 press releases since President Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race, and they're both regarding Project 2025 and its alleged threat to democracy.
Well, they are very concerned about exercising the right to vote. Georgia families want to make sure that their voices are heard. More so, they want to make sure that their voice and their vote counts. But as we have always done, we will stand on the shoulders of those that have come before us, our icons. Martin Luther King Jr.
Democratic Congressman Joaquin Castro has put in doubt the peaceful transfer of power in 2025. While
Martin Luther King was a Republican.
A video on his social media account from a speech he gave at the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee.
How to run a political campaign? Well, hell, he didn't run a very good one himself.
What kind of leader do I want to be if I win? Christie's Yale seminar follows an April talk where he emphasized to the audience that the truth matters.
The CDC says that 9 people have...
But you want to get ahead. We must create an opportunity economy.
She did not work at McDonald's.
Get a car loan, buy a home, start a business. But most of all, that instead of being focused on the politics of the past, we need to be thinking about the future.
Her politics of the past.
Well, in 2019, I was in favor of banning fracking, but by 2020, I wasn't really, and I've been consistent for the last 4 years. So I didn't think that answer was great. Now, I will say that what the campaign will point to is, she said, I will not ban fracking, right? So that they're going to say, look, we can debate what she said 5 years ago. I personally think her explanation of some of her flip-flops have not been true.
Food, rent, gas, back to school clothes. That is called Bidenomics. A loaf of bread costs 50% more today. Ground beef is up almost 50%. There's not much left at the end of the month. Bidenomics is working. The price of housing has gone up. It feels so hard to just be able to get ahead. And we are very proud of Bidenomics.
Hurry into the Hyundai Getaway Sales Event.
That frankly has degraded the quality of civil discourse in this country. And I put the blame for that on both parties. It's not just Donald Trump, as Democrats might say or would say probably. It's not just Barack Obama, as a lot of Republicans have said. We're all to some extent, I think, of not appreciating the genius of our political system and the incredible value of the freedom of speech that we have in this country.
Okay, great. So, Robin, how about you? What would people say is the point of politics, political conversation?
To guarantee all Americans the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That should be the ultimate goal, and for those rights to not be infringed by our elected leaders in office. I just want to point out that, there's a huge schism right now. People in record numbers don't trust our government. Congress right now is sitting at a 19.4% approval rating. If you look it up on 538.com. It's been that way since about 2001, actually. So we've got to find ways to work together. We've got to find some commonality. Some ways that I would propose would be to look at things that we agree on across the aisle.
Hold the
like
thought. Hold the
education
thought. We'll get there. We'll get there. Hold that one. All right, I'm going to move to you, Bruce. And you interact with the business community more than for, perhaps other communities. But how do you think people would answer that?
Well, first of all, what Mark and Robin have pointed out, I think is absolutely accurate. But now, if you ask people in general, and to some extent, they're asking political elites, the average person out there is not going to identify the fact that America is a great experiment. They have not learned that in their civics from, years gone by. And most of them are preoccupied with their day-to-day life. If you ask them for what the impact is or why do we have political discourse, what's the purpose, it's probably something to do with the sense of prosperity, that we need economic prosperity, we need cultural prosperity, we need peace and harmony. That's what they're probably going to answer. Many people realize there's a great divide, but they themselves do not know or are not politically aware enough. And that's shame on us for not being politically aware enough as the owners of our government about the importance of political discourse. So I think some education is going to be necessary to elicit an intelligent response from them.
Do you think, Mark, going back to you, do you think people actually think that we are self-governing or that it's governing from the top?
Oh, I think that gets right to one of the fundamental problems that I think Robin alluded to and Bruce certainly did just now. People don't trust, generally speaking, they don't trust the government, they don't trust the media, they don't trust journalists. The elite in the corporate world is not doing great on the public confidence. So, that's a big problem. But I think it's more of a symptom of what Bruce just was talking about the lack of education, lack of understanding that particularly the younger generations, Gen Z and so forth, they just have not. They never read the Federalist Papers, for example. If you want to understand how our system is supposed to work, and I was assigned to read the Federalist Papers in high school, maybe we should go back to something like that.
Okay, so let's jump. Oh, go ahead. You want to throw in there?
Well, I was just going to comment, not to try to go out of order, but just a relative thought. Probably most people view their government as something that they have delegated responsibility to. Government's supposed to take care of this and that. And that delegation of responsibility has subtly, over the decades, become an abdication of responsibility. So now it's not me as the citizen who's responsible, it's this entity called the government. And I'm not even aware that there are 2, 3, or 4 levels that exist. It's just this thing called government, which I don't appreciate the fact that I'm actually the owner of my government. And if we're not happy with what's happening in our government, we really have to blame ourselves and take personal responsibility for that. And it's always much easier to blame someone else than to blame ourselves.
All right, Robin, we have less than a minute and then we hit a break. So do you have something to add to this part?
I do. I wish that, look, I'm a single parent raising 2 kids all on my own. And I think it's important that parents bring their children up to appreciate government, take them to city council meetings, get them involved, take them to knock on doors, get them involved in the process. That'll start the next generation having them to care about their government and invest in it. It's just got to be done.
All right, great. So we are. All right, consensus there. Have we reached our first consensus? Excellent. Fantastic.
Yes.
We're going to take a break, and when we get back, we're going to talk a little more on our panel about what went wrong. How did we get here?
Russian strikes of the war yet.
That's right. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has the story.
Videos show the scope of destruction after a
Genocide.
missile attack on Ukraine's Poltava on Tuesday. President Volodymyr Zelensky says he ordered an investigation into the circumstances of the attack.
People found themselves under the rubble. Many were saved. More than 180 people were injured, and unfortunately, many died.
The number of injured people was later updated to over 230. Zelensky is urging allies to let Ukraine use their long-range weapons to strike deeper into Russia. Also in Ukraine on Tuesday, an anticipated government shakeup might have started. Multiple high-ranking officials resigned. Among them are the Strategic Industries Minister, the Justice Minister, and the country's Environment Minister. At Ukraine's national power grid, 2 board members resigned after the CEO was being let go. The 2 board members say the dismissal of the CEO was politically motivated. The head of the power grid was being let go on Monday after he presented a report to protect grid facilities during Russian attacks. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pushes back against growing pressure to reach a ceasefire deal in Gaza.
Around 500,000 people took to the streets of Israel on Sunday following the discovery of 6 more dead hostages. Here's the Prime Minister in his first public remarks since those mass protests.
No one is more committed to freeing the hostages than me. There is no one who fought more for the release of hostages, and I was also injured in the release of hostages. No one will preach to me on this issue.
Netanyahu was referring to his involvement in the operation to storm a hijacked jet in Tel Aviv in 1972, in which he was injured. The Prime Minister said yesterday he will insist on continued Israeli control of the Philadelphia corridor. The corridor is a narrow band along Gaza's border with Egypt, where Israel says Hamas smuggles weapons into Gaza. Israelis poured into the streets late Sunday in grief and anger. And a rare general strike was held across the country yesterday.
The Hamas terror group said yesterday the group has been operating under new instructions since June. The guidelines advise on how to handle hostages should Israeli forces approach their locations in Gaza. The announcement comes days after the Israeli military recovered the bodies of 6 hostages from a tunnel in Rafah. Israel says they were murdered by their captors as Israeli forces got close. A Hamas spokesperson did not provide details on what the new instructions were.
All right, coming up, Volkswagen is considering